Yeah, the day I was on the telephone, I was talking to this young lady, and I was giving her what I thought was an excellent explanation on our history and our culture. So after I gave her my rendition of our culture and our history, and I thought I had her going, right? She said, well, are you atheist? I'm like, sister, atheist? I say, let's break down the words. See, the problem we have is we don't necessarily break down words. We don't understand the words that we use to kill each other, right? So I said, first of all, atheist means anti-God, right? And the word for God, theos, appears in the Greek in the New Testament. That's theos. So of course I would be an atheist or anti-God because I'm anti-Greek culture. And what I was trying to explain to the young lady is you should never ever allow another person's culture to determine how you see the omnipotent force in the universe. See, that's our problem. Of course they say we're against God and all these things because first of all, God ain't even one of our words. That's how I was trying to explain to her. As a matter of fact, God's not even a Hebrew word, it's a Greek word. It's not my fault, it's a German word coming from gut, and it means mighty men. So in this lecture, right, I'm going to go down and I'm going to show you the different names that they was using for God in the Bible so you can understand that really has nothing to do with your culture. And as a matter of fact, the word God is a biblical character. And until we can really understand that the word God is a biblical character, we can never turn around and be who we're supposed to be. Because that word, we've given that word so much power that it just destroys us. Because a person can be listening to what you're saying, you can say, yeah, well, the clear man's the devil, and it's that and the other, and they with you. As soon as you go against that Jesus and that God, they all jump ship. So what I'm saying is the power that we have given words and phrases, right? We give power to things that are against us. So I want to start this lecture off. This lecture will be called the Hyksos, the Children of Israel. Wow, why did I say that? So I'd like to start off with Destruction of Black Civilization, page 84 by Chancellor Williams. I consider this book to be a Bible because it is a Bible. Bible simply means little book. Bible, or the Holy Bible, comes from Helios, right? Which is Heliopolis, or the city of On, which is Bible, which is papyrus, or little book. So really this is the Sun Records, the Holy Helios, the papyrus, the Sun Records. So I consider this to be the Sun Records, the little book. And when you look at your book, the King James Version of the Bible, that's not a Bible. That's not a little book. That is 66 books. Remember, King James broke away from the Catholic Church. Took out 6 books, right? Which left 66 books. So right there in your hand, you're reading the book of the devil, 666. So let me come to Chancellor Williams. He says, the end of the 12th dynasty, 1786 BC, ended nearly 3½ centuries of great leaders and therefore great progress. Yet once again, the circle of disaster returned with the 13th dynasty. Mental pygmies sat on the throne, once occupied by giants. Nearly 2 centuries of eternal strife and decay followed. Lower Egypt, of course, had quickly became independent again for the 3rd time. This meant an increasing and unrestricted flow of agents in the country. A period of turmoil was also opportune time for the great armed invasion. Among these invasions were the Hyksos, the children of Israel. According to the historian Josephus, this invasion of Egypt in 1720 BC was ruthless and aimed at nothing less than the extermination of the Egyptian people and their replacement by the Israelites. Wow, all our life we was taught that these Israelites, and these Hebrews, was God's chosen people. Once again, God's chosen people. What is God considered to be in this lecture? It is a Bible character. You cannot find God in any ancient African language. Let's get that straight. We might have said things like Amun-Ra, or the Nunkalam, or the Netcha, or the Shu, or Tefnut, but we would never use the word God. So, let's figure out where these people came from that they call them Hebrew. So let's deal with the definition of Hebrew. I'm going to use the Strong Concordance, which would be a primary source, right? And in the Strong Concordance, the number of the word Hebrew, you will find it 05680. That's 05680, Strong Concordance. And the definition for the word Hebrew, first of all, in the Hebrew, the word is ibrit. And the definition they give is one from beyond, right? Or those who crossed over. So right there it's telling you, right, that the Hebrew is not a people, the ibrit is not a people, it's an actual action. It's an action. So it's a group of people committing a certain action. And that action is those coming from the region and beyond. Can we focus on the map right there? Where's the pointer, which is really not a pointer, it's blind thing, but we're going to use it. Look at it right here. You got the Nile Valley. You got the Tigris Euphrates River in this area. So by the definition, it said those from beyond the Tigris Euphrates, we take you over here. We would take you to Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan. Right in this area, we would take you past the Caspian Sea, and right beside the Caspian Sea, you have what they call these times they call it the Amur River. In ancient times, it was called the Hyksos River. This is where these people's central location was. It would have been in Asia. These are the areas where these people would have migrated from, and by the very definition of the word Hebrew, from the region beyond the Tigris Euphrates. This is beyond the Tigris Euphrates, right? These are the people that committed the action, and I'm saying they are the Hyksos. In ancient Africa, they was known as the rulers of foreign lands, shepherd kings. So now we see where they're coming from. Now we understand. Now we understand that Hebrew is not a people, it's just an action. It has nothing to do with a group of people, it's just an action. And the only people that are recorded in history as doing that action would have been these mixed Semitic groups. Now the Hyksos name, right, let me come to the record of, let's come to the Oxford Companion to Archaeology, right? And let's see what they say about the name Hyksos. Because once again, the word Hyksos is still not talking about the people, it's dealing with the leadership. So this particular leadership was considered foreign rulers. And under these foreign rulers, you had like the Hittites, you had the Hardians, you had, what else you might have? You would have had these Eurasians, these Caucasus Asians, these Arab Asians. You would have all these different groups of people alliancing themselves together, right, to invade Africa, which at that point in time was the most powerful station on the earth. I said station, most powerful nation on earth. So let's see what the book of archaeology, the Oxford Companion to Archaeology, edited by Brian M. Fagan. They say the Asiatics are known as the Hyksos, a Greek term derived from Egyptian designation rulers of foreign lands. It is a political term, not an archaeological, not an etymological description. From their base in Arius, the Asiatics developed a far-flung alliances and contacts. So, it's detailed in the record of archaeology, right, that the name Hyksos is not a people, it's actually a leadership or group. So what this particular leadership did was, they gathered up many people from different nations, different armies from different places, and it was a coalition of people that got together that invaded Africa around the 1700 BC. By the way, that's the same time your so-called Abraham, which is considered the first Hebrew. Understand that Abraham is not a real person. He's a biblical character. He's a biblical character. He means absolutely nothing to me. I only use these biblical characters and me proving my point. So, let's come to the, let's see. Oh, you know what? I got a picture of the Oxen River, right? See that? Finish the area. Turn the page. Oxen River, the Borak River, all these areas. A lot of times, a lot of people ask me what these people look like. First of all, you had all different complexions because there was a lot of miscegenation going on. And as you understand, the Africans that ruled all that region, clear up to Russia, we had all that area. So these Asians, we were mixing a lot. And by the way, in ancient times, the ancient Africans would travel to this area, the Oxen River, and they would get a particular stone, a particular pigment. I forget the name of the stone, but a particular pigment, a particular blue pigment that you can only find in the Oxen River. So we was mining these areas in ancient times. And you know, when you go on long expeditions to do mining things, you don't bring your women with you. So we was mixing with those Asians, or those Caucasus Asians. Caucasus meaning something dead and rotten, or dead is a Caucasus Asian. Thus you get your Caucasus Asians. This is the glacier at the source of the Oxen River. A whole lot of cold regions, icy regions. See, it's important to start to get a mental picture of what these places look like, where these people came from, and how they developed. Here's a cave. Remember we saw them the original cave, man. It's a cave located in Ankhkakek. So they had caves in that area. When you look at the people in Pakistan today, you're basically looking at the same people. They just continue to change their names over and over again. When you're looking at the so-called Muslim or the Arabs, you're looking at the same people. Okay, so this Abraham character, he said he came from the Ur Chaldees. Can we look at that as being a fact or a fable? But of course it's a fable. So let's look at the Ur Chaldees. First of all, let's come to the 101 Myths of the Bible by Gary Greenberg. That's a Jew there. This is what he says about the Ur Chaldees. For the table of contents, go to page 115. We're going to find out, could Abraham possibly came from the Ur Chaldees? Because we was taught in church from the Ur Chaldees. Now Abraham, supposedly, according to the Bible, he lived with Terah, was his father, and in that area they was worshiping a god called Holy Monster. And they were fire worshipers. And Abraham supposedly, he wanted to worship the one God, so he left because they was going to kill him. So they want us to believe he left an area that was worshiping many gods, and went to an area that was really dealing with a whole lot of different deities, different aspects of the supreme force of the universe. That don't even make no sense. Why would you leave one area that had supposedly many different deities to go to another region that was really doing the thing? Remember, we was dealing with all the aspects and all the forces of nature, in nature and outside of nature. Everything, that's what we dealt with. And everything had a certain title to it. So, on page 115 and 100 Myths of the Bible, which is an excellent book, he says, the myth. Terah took Abraham, his son, Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarah, his daughter-in-law, his son Abraham's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. Genesis 11:31. The reality. The Ur Chaldees did not exist until about the 8th century BC, about 1,000 years after the time of Abraham. Ball game on that. So let's back up with some more documentation, in case I just made this up. Let's see. If you come, I have go to a website. It's called the Hebrew or Kadesium. Walter Renfield, writing Menfield, and it says, scholars are divided as to Ur's location. Position it is either Urfa in modern Turkey or Ur in Babylonian, modern Tel Marga, alternately rendered Mugra or Mugara or Mugayer. This brief article investigates the claims made by both sides. Professor Sharon, favoring it to be Babylonia, notes that the term of Chaldees, of Hebrew, dates to the Aramaic narrative to no earlier than 7th century BC. The difficulty, however, lies in the designation of Ur of the Chaldees. The name Chaldees, as applied to Lower Mesopotamia, does not appear before the 11th century BC. Many hundreds of years after the patriarch, the city of Ur itself could not have been called the Chaldees before the foundation of the Neo-Babylonian Empire in the 7th century BC. The characterization, therefore, as distinct from tradition, would seem to be anachronistic. What they're saying is that the event happened from the actual time, meaning they take things of the chronological dates, right, and place a character in that date, meaning that this something would have happened at a certain time, but they write about it as happened as a more later time. Make sense to you, my dear? Mm-hmm. That's what they're saying. I don't know if the website is doing right, but it's a very important article. Okay. So now we find that the people that are called the Hebrews, or Abraham, which is the first patriarch, is the patriarch of the Muslims and the Hebrews, had no home to come from. So you cannot say that Abraham came from the Ur of Chaldees. But the only people that are recorded in history as making that pilgrimage or making that trek or crossing over, you had a lot of rivers they was crossing over, would have been these Hyksos people. But these Hyksos people, the name of Hyksos is just dealing with the rulership. All right, John, you have to pause that. I killed it with the phone. Return the phone. So let's get this straight. There is no Abraham coming from the Ur Chaldees, as I proven that there is no Ur Chaldees to around, the scholars are divided from between 1100 BC to around maybe 700 BC. Somewhere in that period, there is no Ur Chaldees. So there is no Abraham coming from no Ur Chaldees. There is none of that. Second of all, the name Ibrit or Hebrew is an action. We must get to understand that it's an action, and the people that did that action, or the group of people that did that action, was a mixed group of individuals. And the people that led that group or coalition were the Hyksos, which means, as I proved it, means foreign rulers. Hyksos is the designation of a group, leadership group. So there is no Ur Chaldees, right? So there is no Abraham. So the point I'm making is the people that did that action of Ibrit, which means you cross over, would have been the Hyksos and their coalition group that attacked Africa around 1700 BC. So let's get into the different names that they're using as God. Deal with that. That's very important. I'm going to go to the Strong Concordance, because I'm using the Strong Concordance because the Strong Concordance had they define their words within that Bible, or what I like to call the Bible, because there's a whole lot of battling and bibbling going on in that thing. So let's see. Let's come to that. Okay. First word they use is El. Now, first word they're using in the Bible is El. You got to understand they use a lot of different words for God in the Bible, but they translated it all as God. So the truth of the matter is they got you praying to all different types of God. They don't have you praying to one God, as they say. Not even a little bit. Because I'm going to show you how they don't got you praying to one God. They'll lead you to believe that in the beginning, that particular God created heaven and earth. So let's see if that one God created heaven and earth in the Bible. Let's find out. So I'm going to skip over. Now I want to go to the word Elohim, which is like the third word they use for God. Because you had the singular, which is El, you have the dual, which is Elo, and then you got that plurality of things, which is Elohim. Now, the word Elohim, the Strong's number is 0430. Don't believe me? Go check it out. Go get yourself a Strong Concordance. Or go online, you can type in Blue Letter Study Bible, and you'll be able to click on all the words and get what I'm saying. It's so important to use that tool to begin to break the spell, because the spell is placed on us through spelling and through languages and different words, and we get power to words that have nothing to do with us. So let's see. Elohim, the definition is the plural, rulers, judges, divine one, angels, God, plural intensive, singular meaning, God, goddesses, God-like one, works of special procession of God, the true God, God. So which God do they have you praying to, or which goddess is that? So let's see. If you go to Genesis, go to Genesis 1:1 in your Bible. That's Genesis 1:1 in your Bible, and it clearly states, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The word there for God is 430. And that word 430 is Elohim. So what they're saying is in the beginning, because if me as an African was translated, I would say in the beginning the goddesses created the heavens and the earth. Because the only thing I know in nature that does any creating would be the feminine principle. So it couldn't have been no man God doing that creating, but it's clearly there. So all you Christians, Muslims, Jews, right, there is no such thing as your one God creating anything, because the Muslims ain't nothing but Christians, which ain't nothing but Hebrews, which ain't nothing but people that crossed over, which ain't nothing but the Hyksos, and their documentation, they do not start out their Bible with the one God. They start their Bible out with the plurality of things, and that's the Elohim. So let's go to El, which is supposedly the singular form, which it really ain't. Let's see what El means. Come to this document, range of meanings, right? Biblical, you can go to www.biblicalheritage.org, right? And it says El. El is the supreme creator God of the Canaanites. What? First of all, let's get this straight. The people you're calling the Hebrews, these people that migrated to Africa, they did not have a particular name for the omnipresent force of the universe. All they got, they borrowed from different cultures. Even though I'm using the Canaanite, which is still another biblical term, I'm thinking James Small said that those people that are considered to be the Canaanites were the God people in Africa today. But they're saying that El is the supreme creator God of the Canaanites, who lives with the other gods on Mount Zippor, similar to Mount Olympus of the Greeks. but located in the mouth of Orontes River near the border between Turkey and Syria. So once again, these people that we're considering to be Hebrews have borrowed their God. El, which is Canaanite deity.
You're not clear on where El is coming from. I mean, I understand it because I talked to you before, but for people who might not understand, when they read their Bible, they see God. Why are you saying El and Elo?
Okay, because they're the Hebrew words used. They're not the English words used. Remember, back in that day, so concerned, they wasn't speaking English. They would have been speaking what they call Hebrew, and then we'll get into what time period the Hebrew came in. Because even back then, when this story supposedly take place, they wasn't even speaking Hebrew. We'll make sure we get to that. So when I say El, I'm using the Hebrew term for it. El, which they're considering to be the source. But El is really supposed to be a singular form of it, but they borrowed that form from the ancient Canaanites, which is a black people. Because if you look at where the region of Canaan. So let's see, all this area over here is really Northeast Africa. When you get down to it, you look at the map, all of it fits in together like one big puzzle. So in ancient times, this would have been Pandora, right? One landmass, and all this area was called, they call it Ethiopia. It was really a Greek rendition. It would have been Aksum. Or the whole thing was, when the ancient Africans ruled, they called it the Nagu. When we get into that election, we ruled the Nagu was, right? And we ruled the whole planet. So the whole planet was unified under Maya. But back to my point being, this being Northeast Africa, all this area here being Africa, Northeast Africa, right? Those people that came from the region of beyond would have been that coalition, that mixed group of individuals, different aspects from the same murdering group, right? Came down, and as they came down, they was overrunning other black people. So my point being, these Canaanites, which is a biblical term, which is really the God people of the day, right, had a chief deity, and it was El. So right there in your so-called Torah, right, they so-called singular for God, which is El, right, they borrowed it from another African culture. So right there, they didn't even have a name for God. Let me show you. Each name they used for God was borrowed from other cultures. Okay, so we got El. Now we see El was borrowed from the Canaanites. I proved that. Let's go to the next form of their called deity. That's Elo. Elo. We need the strong concordance number on the Elo. Alright. We deal with Elo. You're dealing with Strong's number 0433. That strong number 0433 is so important if you go to that Blue Letter Study Bible and you start clicking on these different words. Like I said, they translate God many different ways. You'll think they're talking about God, but they're talking about different aspects of God. They give you one word in English, right? But when you go to the Hebrew, right, it's different words mean that. So you don't know what you're praying to when you pray to what they're calling God, which has absolutely nothing to do with black people. God's biblical character. So the meaning of what they're calling Elo, right, means God or false God. Strong's number right here. False God. So my point being, which God are you praying to? The real God or the false God when you deal with Elo? Let's find out where they get the term Elo from. We're going to come to the voodoo, quantum leap, by alternate realities, powers, and mysticism, by Reginald Crowley, M.D. Crossley, I don't know if I spelled it right. Reginald C-R-O-S-L-E-Y-M-D. Book. Let's go to his forward. Let's see what he says about it. Look. And he says, there were in fact the first religious functionaries who acted as priests and priestesses of any religious known to humanity. Through their intuitions and rational observations, they became able to determine what should be the proper attitude, emotions, and correct behavior to apply when approaching the elementary principles of the universe or when dealing with any one of her 401 forms or powers named Loa or Loa or Loa, a word that somewhat resembles the Elo of the Hebrew language, which means God. We'll see once again. Borrowed it from your Badum system, that Elo. They did not have it on their own, they borrowed it from your system. You gotta understand that the Badum system, meaning creative force in the universe, is power, forces, energies. It's the oldest form of African spirituality. That's for another lecture. So we got El being a Canaanite deity. We got Elo coming from the Badum system. Let's deal with the next word. I think I dealt with it. I said it was the Elohim, and that strong number was 0430. Right? And they get that from where? They get that from Africa. They get that from the Necha or the Netiru, which means rulers or judges. So what I'm trying to tell you is when they say in the beginning God, they could have been saying, watch me translate. They could have been saying in the beginning the rulers or the judges created the heavens and the earth. Or they could have said in the beginning the gods created. Or they could have said the angels created that. So you never know what they're talking about. You have no idea when the preacher stands in the pulpit and he's preaching to you about God, that you have no understanding of this until you start getting to the language and understand that they have nothing to do with you.
Okay, you naming all of the different names that they use for God.
Right.
But at the same time, you're saying all of them was borrowed from African names. So
name.
could the gods, all of these different gods, be African gods?
Exactly. But see, in actuality, like I said before, it's using the word God. What I'm saying is they was using different aspects of our culture. They was using different ancestors. That's what the Africans was doing, was giving due reverence to different elements. Atoms, protons, neutrons, electrons, mine, gold, air, water, H2O. If you go to the element chart, right, all those would be considered nature, right, if you really broke it down. So what they was doing, they was borrowing from our system, because you remember, this Caucasus Asian had no system of overstanding the omnipresent force in the universe before they came in contact with the African. And then coming in contact with the African, right, they tried to get some type of overstanding and totally denied it and totally gotten away from it. Really, all they really give you in your Bible is they talking about a man, a mighty man. That's all they talking about, or a ruler or judges. So in the Bible, they got you praying to people. African people do not pray to men. African people do not pray to women. They give due respect and due reverence to men and women and their family line, just giving due respect to their family line. Did I answer your question with that?
Yes.
All right. So we see all their names they use in the Bible they borrowed from African culture. Like I said, there's nobody called African. African comes from the word ibrit, and it means separate and divide. So we are Kens, meaning body, Ra meaning the sun, and Khem meaning black people. Okay, so now we figured out that they ain't got no God. So if they ain't got no God, right, and then they ain't got no place where they came from, right, just what are we really dealing with? We're dealing with a myth. There's nothing wrong with having myths, but the problem is a myth is good as long as your culture has devised that myth, as long as your culture put that myth together. If you follow somebody else's myth, you find yourself in trouble. Because you follow somebody else's myth may very well be destroying your culture. Because as you read in what they call in the Bible, right, that myth that they have composed is what I like to call it. I like to call this book here the kryptonite. Because as soon as you accept the kryptonite, right, you have accepted your demise. You have accepted the destruction of a black civilization. Because once this becomes part of your psyche, you start to hate yourself. Because this book puts you in direct opposition to yourself. So all those people that think you be a Christian, Muslim, and Jew, you've been tricked because you have accepted your enemy's rendition of who and what you should be. This Bible puts you head on against the ancient Pharaoh, which is, we didn't have no Pharaoh, we had in the Google. They put you right against that. Right here in this Bible, you hate what they call the Pharaoh. You love Moses. You remember, this is the African Heritage Study Bible. You're going to read a Bible, you might as well get this one. The author tries to put some information in it. The point I'm making is, once you've accepted this into your consciousness, right, you've accepted your total destruction. Because like I said, once you start to love Moses, right, you start to neglect the fact that he killed African boys, African children. I think they call it, what they call it? They call it the, you put the blood over the top of the your doorway, they call it, with the angel dust, the Passover. When you accept the Passover as being something, you just accept the wholesale slaughter and murder of young African boys. Understand that. That's crazy. So put down the kryptonite. Okay, so we covered the certain days, but we have not covered Yahweh. Yahweh meaning Yah meaning good and evil. That's still coming from Babylon, I believe. So let's say what this Yahweh comes from. So not even their particular supreme God, Yahweh. I'm going to go to Dr. Ben's book, A Need for a Black Bible. And he breaks it down eloquently on exactly what Yahweh was. Go to page, this is the myth, no, it's called The Myth of Genesis and Exodus and the Exclusion of Their African Origins by Dr. Ben. Excellent book. Go to page 9, down the bottom. This is what he says about Yahweh. He says, it says the name was originally used in Egypt before the birth of the first Hebrew. So he's saying the name Yahweh was used in ancient Africa before the birth of the first Hebrew. That's a frightening revelation for those who have not studied. He was popular during the, 16th dynasty as a minor divine figure under the name of Yahweh. And he has YWH, right? Or Yahweh or Yahweh, and written in the hieroglyphics. So I'm going to show you how it was written in hieroglyphics. The first 4 letters means divinity. The last is a picture of Yahweh himself. Moses had to read about him long before this period. See the black man as a now in his family. So I don't know if you can see that. You ain't ready to pick that up.
I could try.
Yeah, because it's actually written. To show you how we wrote it in the Meta Necha, which is the word of God. See that? So imagine that. Then Yahweh is a ball dead. First of all, it means 2 parts. You got good, Yahweh, and it's evil. Good and evil. So right there, they have no name for God. And all that names for God was borrowed from different aspects of different African cultures. So the problem I always find is people saying that it's these black Hebrew Israelites. As Dr. Ben clearly states, Judaism or Hebrewism is a religion. That's how he explains it. So there is no such thing as a black Hebrew. There is no such thing as a black person, because remember, when these people was crossing over, it was a mixed breed of people. Caucasus Asian, Europe Asian, Hittites, Hurrians, all different groups with different shades, from the very brown to the very white. So this thing you calling Hebrews, this is for the black Hebrew Israelites, right? This is not a people, it's just a religion, and anybody can accept that religion right here today. All you gotta do is go to the Kohen, right? I think he has to deny you 3 times, right? And then on that 3rd time, right, he has to let you in and do whatever they do. Okay. So, actuality?
2 questions. When do you place white people in history? And when was the first Hebrew, if there was such thing as a Hebrew? Who would have been where, what time frame would that have been?
Well, actuality, you always had Hebrews. You always had people crossing over, because it's like being Egyptian. So remember, these people are nomadic people. They have no settled home. They have no civilization. They have no culture. They're desert people. They're the Arabs. They're the Bedouin. So all these people that you find over there fighting in the mountain regions right now, that's them people right there. Right? And first of all, they're not even white people. You don't even find the first white people. And I guess until you come to the Greek society, and even the Greek society, right, was still, like my uncle liked to say, people of color. So I don't know where white people, when they came into history. I can't really say. They have no writing. Maybe they came from the Portuguese. I'm not necessarily sure, but I know they're not in ancient history. Let's get this straight, right? There are no white people in ancient history. Hebrew, the Bible, the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims, they do not have an ancient history. The Bible is not an ancient story. It is not considered an ancient story, because they only go back to 4004 BC of record. I don't even know how they go back that far, but that's not ancient. Because as in destruction of black civilization, I'll try to find it. You pause it for a minute, I want to find it. So I'm speaking about ancient, like I said, the Muslims, the Christians, the Jews, they aren't ancient people. Europeans aren't ancient people. The only ancient people that I know of on record would be the Africans. So Bible history is not an ancient history. 4004 BC is not ancient. Let's go to Destruction of Black Civilization, page 91. This is what he says. The still interesting fact about Thebes is that many of its formerly great temples were prehistoric ruins even 5,000 years ago. The most ancient temple of Karnak, for example, and what was the center of Noe, goes back beyond the reach of man's record. It's a deep statement right there. So what he's saying was, if we was standing in 5,000 BC, we would be looking at temples that were ancient.
Right.
We would be looking at temples that are ancient. If we were standing there in 5,000 BC, we could look at some temples with some ancient ruins, and that's ancient. You start going back 150,000 years, 80,000 years, then you're talking about ancient. So they kill me dead when they say the ancient Hebrews. There are no such thing as an ancient Hebrews. So let's see. We've covered the fact that these Hebrews or these children of Israel, these Hyksos right there, have no God. I showed that all they deities, or what they want to call God, which is still not pertaining to African people, they still stole that from African culture. So, okay, the next thing is, what else did they steal? If you say you have a God, right, then you would have had a temple to worship in, right? Okay? And so, then we're going to check out the temples. Then what else we're going to check out? If you got a God, and you got temples, then you must have a language. So we're going to have to deal with their language, and when their language came to existence. So let's deal with their language right now. Let's deal with their language. Because what I want to do is break down all the components of what they use to break you down as an African person. They use their God to break you down. They use their language to break you down because you don't understand the language. They use their houses of worship to break you down. Because remember, they considered you to be pagans because you was just outside giving due admiration to the elements of nature. So they break you down. Now they got you in a church, or they got you in a synagogue, or they got you in a mosque. So since we're dealing with these Hebrews, let's first deal with this language first and see where their language comes from. Because this is what you got to understand. Abraham supposedly came into Africa in 1700 BC. Moses supposedly was in Africa at 1200 BC. During this time, they did certain things, particularly Moses. He supposedly got the 10 Commandments off of Mount Haru, which is still ancient African deity, right? And he supposedly got the 10 Commandments. My question has always been, okay, if Moses got a tablet, because it clearly states that he got tablets from God, so what language was God writing in did he give Moses? The Hebrew scholars would say it was the Hebrew language. Let's see if that's true. Let's go to, we already know the oldest form of writing came from the ancient Africans. They call them Egyptians. We would never call them Egyptians. Egyptians come from the word Egyptos, which was placed on the whole land. It was really the city of Menace, and they say they called it Egyptos, and put it on the whole land. So no place in Africa called Egypt. It was called, you can't even say Kemet because they ain't had no vowels. So I don't know what they was calling it, but I know it was a whole bunch of niggas there. And we'll get on that term. So the point I'm making is, let's go to their language and find out exactly when their language came to being. We're going to go to, this is a very important website for you to go to. It's called ancientscripts.com. Okay? Ancientscripts.com. First, let's deal with the African writing. They call it Egyptian because they still using those words and terms to take you away from yourself. And they're real shrewd with it, and you got to give them credit for it. They will always mention things that's not you, but really talk about you. But they won't use the words you use, so you will not recognize. In our minds and our heads, we think the Egyptians are like some kind of like Semitic people. The truth of the matter is, the Egyptians are Semitic people because we weren't called Egyptians. But I'll get to that point. So let's see. The ancient Egyptian writing, which is ancient African writing, goes back to 3,100 BC, which is still a lie. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Primordial Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man, Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man by Albert Churchwood. I believe I'm going to page 239, right? And we're going to find out just how far the ancient African writing go back. Actually, it's on page 245, right? And let's see exactly how far it's going back. And it says, he says, further evidence recently found connecting prehistoric man with the ancient Egypt as a birthplace dating from the Neolithic and Paleolithic age, as provided by ivory tablets found in the tomb of Ankhkakek, etc., and other recent discoveries of ancient coral writing, right? So they really got writing just going all the way back that far. And this is how the writing looks. Coming from the tomb of Ankhkakek. It says the ivory tablets found in the tomb of Ankhkakek, right? The linear writing signs of clay vessels. See that right there. Look how far that's going back. It says vessels. It says vessels in Egypt dating back to the early Neolithic time, and ivory tablets showing the so-called linear writing found in the royal tomb of Ankhkakek, which Professor Sigi thinks have nothing in common with the Egyptian ideograph characters, right? But which we consider one of the most important discoveries that have ever yet been made, because they give the names of 6 kings of the south, with the length of reign of each before the time of Menes. The supposed first king of the first dynasty, having been found in the tomb, must have lived before they reigned. We see here the earliest beginning of linear writing, which was the commencement of a progressive form of the hieroglyphic system. We are convinced that these so-called Proto-Egyptian writings were simply the earliest attempts in the form of writing into the alphabet form, an improvement upon the ancient and true hieroglyphics. So we see, we take our writing system all the way back to 150,000 years ago. They never tell you that. They try to give you 3100 BC. You know why they give you those dates? Because if you go past 3100 BC, you just killed the whole Bible. Remember, God created the earth 4004 BC. So how you going to be writing in 1,000 years? So they killing you with that information, but the fact of it, and they found it, they got it. So we go back to Neolithic times reading and writing. So if we're going back that far, then how long did it take to develop that particular system? It takes time to develop certain systems. We had what they call the dendor, which is still a Greek word for it. It was a dendor, which means the sun. It took a 26,000 years, which is a great year to us, period, for the sun to go through the zodiacs. 26,000 years. So you got 26,000 years, you know what we was here for these doing things. But then you would have to ask you, how long would you have to study, right, to even know that the sun took 26,000 years to go through the zodiacs? On top of that, right, so you got 26,000 years time to know it go through that. That's 20. Then another 26,000, because then you got to watch it to make sure it wasn't no mistakes, right? So you got at least 3 great years if we know we was here for a fact. We can back it up and say that we had writing back then. So you know, you taking out people off the map. What I like to always say is, there is not a time when we was not. There is not a time when there was not our people on this planet. You can always mark when they came into existence, but you can never mark when we came into existence, because it's not a time when we was not. So let's go to the Hebrew, right? Oh, African writing also had a cursive script. Let's not forget that. Back then we was also writing in cursive. Let's get that straight. So don't think they invented no cursive. No, you was doing that too. Cursive writing. And this is why you gotta always stay studied up. Because then they come over here to the next form of writing, they call it Moronic writing. The Moronic script was used in the kingdom of Kush. Boy, you know they ain't gonna give it no credit. And they say take this writing back to the 2nd century BC. Wow. But is it not the exact same writing as the hieroglyphics? Why do they play these games? Here's some of the hieroglyphics right here, right? Let's look at the Kush script, right? Exact same thing. Let me get a bigger page on that. Let me see what I have on that. Page on that. No, just that and that. But you see, it's the exact same thing.
Could you show them again?
Okay, let's go back to what they call Egyptian writing. Right, he wasn't no Egyptian. By the time we was becoming Egyptians, we become mixed with those Asians. That's why you always had that problem with the North and the South fighting. That's why we was always fighting. That's what they call the Egyptian writing. This is what they call in the African writing. You just tell me the difference. Maybe I'm just crazy. There's no difference. And they said they came into being in the 2nd century BC. Okay, so my grandmother lives up north, and she ain't gonna tell me how to write? It's a ridiculous notion. So let's deal with the Phoenician script, right? The Phoenician script is an important trunk in the alphabet tree. This is what they're saying, right? The Phoenician script came into existence around 1100 BC. Let's take a look at the Phoenician script. It's very important to see that, because this is what you got. You got the Phoenician script, right? Next form is that Old Hebrew, to which the Bible was written in, right? And they take it back to the 10th century BC. Bingo! So how could Moses receive the 10 Commandments at 1200 BC when they themselves didn't even have a writing to the 10th century, which is really like 900 BC? My research takes me back to at least 500 BC when they might have started writing. But what was they writing in? Hebrew, watch this. It says, while many associate written Hebrew with the squash letters adorned by curly flourishes and occasionally vowel marks, Hebrew was originally written with a different but related script called Old Hebrew. The first evidence of this script is the Giza calendar, which dates to around 10th century. So they look at a calendar to say where their language came in. That's so crazy. Okay, watch this. BC records agricultural activities through the year. The early form of Old Hebrew, graphically very similar to the Phoenician. Also, likely early Phoenician. Old Hebrew script did not indicate vowels. That's origin. Let's come to that Old Hebrew though. Then they got their Hebrew. They say it's the 10th century BC, right? Meanwhile, watch this. It says Hebrew is one of the longest continuing recorded languages that has survived in modern day. It was the first to appear around 11th century, early 10th century BC in the form of the Giza calendar. While the script on the inscriptions is called Hebrew, it is barely distinguishable from the Phoenician, from where it originated. Wow, you mean God didn't give them that language? So what they're saying is, right, now take a look at the Phoenician script. This is going to get you. Let's take a look at the Phoenician script. Here's a Phoenician script. In fact, I'll do it like this. I think I had one. I'm going to go one there. That's a Phoenician script, which is barely distinguishable from the Hebrew script. Let's look at the Hebrew script. Phoenician script. Hebrew script. You see that? Hebrew. Phoenician. There is no difference. So let's go to an archaeological record, because this is a second-hand source. It's not a primary source. Stuff you get off the internet is not a primary source, not unless you take it from, like, say, a strong concordance. So let's go to a primary source. Let's go to an excellent book by Mark Bunnell, Black Athena, The Afrocentric Roots of Classical Civilization, Volume 2, the Archaeological and Documentary Evidence. That's why your boy knocks sparks off each one. What we're going to do is, we're going to find out, because this is what I'm saying. I'm saying the Hebrew script came from the Phoenician script, which came from the Canaanite script, which is nothing but the African script. Understand that. We had what you call linear A and linear B, which was a real simple form. Actually, the Hebrew is really a trade language we was using. So what we was doing, we was making different scripts, giving to different people, giving them real simple scripts so they could have some type of information going. So we got to Mark Bunnell's book. All right, we'll come in the back, and we'll come to the Egyptian writing, right? This is often used to refer to not to the Arabic dialect spoken in Egypt today, but to the language of ancient Egypt, which was independent Afrocentric language. So there you have it, that what they call Egyptian is really an Afrocentric language, right? The Hebrew, right? A Canaanite dialect. So we find that the Hebrew is really a Canaanite dialect spoken in the kingdom of Israel, Judah, and Moab between 1500 and 500 BC. For religious reasons, it is often treated as a distinct language. For religious reasons, it's always treated as a distinct language, but it's not. It's a dialect of the Canaanite language. So like I said, and it's documented, like I said, the Hebrew came from the Phoenician script, which came from the Canaanite script, which came from the ancient African script. So right there, these people, they have no language. So to think that 1200 BC, we think that the 1200 BC people was writing and recording things. We think that back in Genesis, the book of Exodus was created before the book of Genesis. We think somebody was back there scribing. Only the Africans was back there scribing, recording their events as they happened. They couldn't have been recording their events because they did not have a written language until around the 800 BC. Wow, that's amazing. So now I took their language away from them, now I've taken their God away from them. So let's deal with something. Let's deal with, okay, well, where did they worship? Let's deal with their synagogues. Do they have ancient synagogues? And they say they're ancient people. Actually, not the only written record of them. No, the only actual written record of synagogues would have been found around 300 BC in Asia. Now we know who was in Egypt 300 BC. It was the Greeks. You got to understand their history. And they have some written things about synagogues then. So it took them that long to start writing about some synagogues, right? So let's go to the book of the Oxford Companion, Archaeology. All right, let's go to the Oxford Comprehension of Archaeology, edited by Brian M. Fagan. This is what he says about their synagogues. They no longer have a God, all their God principles. I don't like the word God, was borrowed from African things. So let's see where was they worshiping at, right? Ancient synagogues. I don't even know why they use the word ancient, because it wasn't ancient. Let's deal with this. The oldest known synagogue is perhaps a structure of the 1st century BC. So they didn't even start having the oldest known synagogue. It's the 1st century BC. That's like around 50 BC or 100 BC. But I thought they was ancient people. I thought Moses and them was doing their thing. I thought the children of Israel was lost in the wilderness running around. So what? The oldest known structure they have as far as synagogues is the 1st century BC. Okay. Found in the island, the island of Delos. Is that like something to do with Greek maybe? Huh, amazing. And inscriptions associated with the mention of Zeus, Hyksos. So let's get this straight. The oldest known synagogues, right? Perhaps a structure of the 1st century BC, right? Found in the Isle of Delos, an inscription associated with the mention of Zeus, Hyksos. See, I told you it was tricking us, right? Right? And the Most High God, Hyksos, the Most High God, right? Which may refer to the Jewish God, but could also be a Sumerian pagan Greek, first of all. The oldest known synagogue they found, right, was dealing with Greek gods. Wow, Hebrew people. I told you they was those same people that came from the Caucasus Mountain, that came from the Oxus River. I told you they're the same people that's been killing us, killing our information, killing our culture. I told you they were the same people. So let's deal with something like this. Let's say the earliest excavated synagogue is located in Israel, where remains that have been found, several sites dating to the time of the first Jewish revolt against the Romans in 66 and 74 AD. You know they try to say that's when the Temple of Solomon was destroyed by Titus, but that can't be true because there is no archaeological record dealing with Solomon. And I could go there and show you that there is no temple, because this is the book of archaeological record, and I'm sure they would have it if it was a Solomon. So let's see right here. It says, we come here, let me see. You see the most conspicuous of Davidic remains is a 60-foot high step structure originally built in the 14th century BC. That's a step structure. Don't that sound like a ziggurat or something? But considerably reinforced by Judean king. It apparently served as a podium for the royal palace or the city of Ankhkakek. In the times of Solomon, David's successor, Jerusalem expanded northward. Although there is no direct archaeological evidence for Solomon's temple, and all information about it is drawn exclusively from the writings. Rap on that. They have no archaeological. What I'm trying to say is, why should one follow a culture that you can't prove and verify, as opposed to following your own culture that you can prove and verify? See, really what they got you doing is, they got you praying to nothing when you pray. And you can prove that you're praying to nothing when you pray, because the thing they gave you was nothing. You cannot prove and verify anything that you're praying to. So when you pray to something, something happens, you end up giving credit to the nothing. But the reason that something happened was because the only thing in that equation that you can prove and verify is you. So in actuality, you're the one answering your prayers, because you're the only thing in that equation that can be proven and verified. So back to what we were talking about the synagogue, right? Let's come to during the 4th century AD, synagogues underwent some changes. These transitional synagogues had a niche or a platform for the Torah shrine. So during the 4th century BC, they started having a niche, meaning that's when they started having a Torah. 4th century AD. Wow, I thought Moses had the first 5 books. No, he couldn't have had the first 5 books because they wasn't even having a Torah until around the 4th century AD, because in their synagogue, they just started having a place for the Torah to be. That's amazing. And they had this, let's finish reading this. Underwent in the traditional synagogues had a niche, a platform for the Torah, shrine, and the wall facing Jerusalem, with the entrance and another wall. The plan was often of a broad room type. The mosaic sometimes decorated the floors of these synagogues. The most famous example is that of Hamath Tiberius. That's Hamath Tiberius, where the central part of the nave contains a zodiac surrounding the sun god Helios in his chariot. It's amazing. So let's take a look at what their synagogues looked like in the 4th century AD, where they first started having synagogues, having a place where they put their Torah at, the niche where they put their Torah at, that was facing Jerusalem. Let's take a look and see what they look like. Let's see what Helios looked like. I told you that Hebrewism ain't nothing but Greek invaders, ain't nothing but the same thing. So you can't say that the original Hebrews was black because the word Hebrew is just an action. So let's take a look at Helios. The sign of the 12 months are depicted in a hand around a circle of Helios, the zodiac. So this is the actual picture that was actually found. That's their sun god Helios, for all you people that want to be Hebrews. Let's get another picture of it. Actually, the Hebrew thing is really a Greek thing, which has always been a Hyksos thing, which is always that same thing that has been a thing that's been killing you and destroying you. Because see, that's their thing. They just keep changing their names. They change it from the Greek to the Hebrews, to the Christian, to the Muslims. Let's see what this article says. It says, a larger problem, however, is what are the zodiacs and a Greek god doing in a synagogue, the central panel of the nave? Yet the problem is compounded by the fact that the zodiac of Heliopolis comprises a theme represented in several ancient synagogues, of which Hamath Tiberius is only the earliest. So in the earliest synagogues, right, they had Greek motifs. But I guess then you'll say, well, we didn't have synagogues. That was the asking the ashes. We had temples. Like what temple? Like Solomon's temple? I just proved that there is no Solomon's temple. No evidence found for that. See, the problem is that we went for some things that we cannot prove and verify, as opposed to going for things we can prove and verify. They got us spooked out. They got us reaching for thin air. When we can deal with some things that's real, we rather pray to some things that is unreal. So we got the language taken care of, that the language was no more than 500 BC. We got the ancient synagogues taken care of because they had a lot of Greek motifs in there. The ancient synagogues don't go back to no farther than it's an AD thing. So now we find that Judaism is just an AD thing. So let's go to record. Let's go to the white boy bought this nice book, and the name of this book is is called the Siege of Jerusalem. No, it's called the Rescue of Jerusalem. Rescue of Jerusalem by Henry T. Allen. Let's find out about Jerusalem. And I'm going to the footnotes. It says, in 701 BC, typical shrine was a place whose rituals were focused on sacrifice. They required the presence of a priest. At the synagogue, on the other hand, it was teachers who were necessary. They gave instruction in Moses' law. Synagogues could therefore have been involved only after 700. It may have been only during early exile or later that they began to evolve. Okay? Let's go to, and it also says many Judahites of that time may have used that day to rest from work, but not to worship. So what we saying? They say God Shabbat on the seventh day, which is crazy to think the whole planet was created in 7 days. That's a ridiculous notion. Let's see. Oh. In the same book, right, is talking about, let's see, in Robert H. Pfeffer, Religion in the Old Testament, the History of a Spiritual Triumph, edited by Charles Cordran Foreman, it says, is one of many scholars to identify 2nd Isaiah, the prophet of the 6th century BC, as the first Hebrew to proclaim monotheism. Wow. I mean, it just gets worse for us. The deep part about it is, wow, they didn't even have Judaism back then. It's not a BC religion, it's an AD thing. They have no temples, they have no what they call synagogues until AD. They got you following an AD thing, lying saying it's an ancient thing. But the truth of the matter is that's just not your thing. What's your thing? Your thing is understanding yourself, knowing yourself. All the ancient temples, the only thing they really had was know thyself. For once you know yourself, you will know all things because you're composed of all things. So it was your job to understand nature, to study nature. You got to remember that we created those concepts that they're calling God today. We were the first to understand these type of things. We were the first people to bring reading and writing to the planet. We did all these things, so you gotta ask yourself, how did we do all these things, building pyramids, but end up on a corner stick in Haran? How did we get to that point? What came into our mind that changed all these things? Who has lied to us? We've been lied to. Let me tell you something else we've been lied to. See, I like to read all kinds of things. We come to Nickelodeon. That was called Nickelodeon. Go to this magazine, right? You know how growing up, everybody want to have them pretty eyes. I like them blue eyes. I like that gray eye chick. Let's see what they say about Nickelodeon. This is Nickelodeon's magazine. This is called a special 3D edition, nuts and bolts, right? And it's just talking about eyes. A special edition talking about eyes. Let's see what those pretty eyes really are. Why do you, in this title, why do you, it say eye openers. It says, why do eyes come in so many different colors? The hue, right, of your iris, or your isis, or your acid, right? The color part of the eye is determined by how much of the pigment called melanin you have. People with lots of melanin in their irises have darker eyes, while those with lesser melanin have lighter eyes. Individuals with green peepers have flakes of a yellowish fatty pigment mixed in with the blue of their eyes, while the hue of your irises is inherited from your parents. The color pattern in each person's eyes is unique like fingerprints. What they're saying is people with color eyes are lacking melanin. People with the brown, beautiful eyes, right, have a lot of melanin in it. So you should never be ashamed of your dark eyes. You have color eyes is an absence of something. It's lacking something. It's lacking a hue. It's lacking a pigment. They're dying. So there's no such thing as pretty eyes. You got the prettiest eyes with that strong presence of melanin in it. You can find information everywhere. You just gotta really want to look. Okay, so we understand that Judaism or Hebrewism is 80 things, right? We understand the language. They have no language, right? We understand they have no God on their own. They have none of these things. Only thing they really got, they can be proven and verified. This book right here is an excellent book. It's called the Hyksos, the New Historical and Archaeological Perspective. Found out who it was written by. The editor's name is Lazar D. Oren. You guys get a number for it. The only thing they do have that they can verify and prove is that they were the Hyksos. This is the archaeological record of the Hyksos. So let's go on to here and see what they're talking about. Let me tell you what these Hebrews did do. Let me tell you what these Hyksos did do. Because a lot of people think that they'll say that even in this book it says that the Hyksos flourished. Science flourished on that period. But of course science flourished through that period. Because just like any corporation, if you have a hostile takeover, right? You keep the same employees in place. You keep the same leadership in place, right? The people that own the company just changed over. So these foreign rulers came in and just changed over the rulership of it. But of course science and mathematics flourished on this time because that system was already in place. So they got to stop that. So let's see. Why I'm saying that the Hebrews and Hyksos are the same people. So let's see. I'm going to come to... First, you got to realize that this whole problem came in from mixing with people other than ourselves. These Africans had strict border laws on who they wanted to come in. And if you read the Destruction of Black Civilization, he clearly tells you. And I'll get to that. Matter of fact, I'm going to hit that real quick to show you on how important those border laws were. Because this is a central theme during this whole book. Central theme during the whole book. When you die. The history of the Black Egypt had been repeated in the Black South. The coming of the Caucasians, whether from Asia or Europe, or whether in the name of peace or trade, integrated society, or in the name of Allah of the Arabs, or the God of Jesus Christ of the Jews and Christians, no matter under what pretense they came, it meant the destruction of a highly advanced civilization of blacks and their total degradation as a people, and the same ethnic phenomenon that accelerated the process of racial disintegration in Egypt also operated in the Sudan. This was simply stated, this widespread sexual activity of the pattern of Arab men and black slave girls, the outcome of which was a new breed of Afro-Arabs, the same sexual process that produced Egyptians as a national group, neither Asian nor African. What he's saying is every time we mix, they created the destruction of black civilization. Watch this. This is coming from the book, the Hyksos, the New Historical and Archaeological Perspective. It said, evidence for such a considerable influx of people from the Levant requires explanation, right? An idea of the role of much of the population is provided by the presence of weapons, 80% Syrian Palestinian type that are found in 50% of all male burials within the settlement, right? These weapons including the duck-bill axe and the shock lance head, indicate that perhaps these people were soldiers recruited from Canaan during the 12th dynasty. Because this was an area of powerful Egyptian rulers who maintained a strict border control, it is unthinkable that either nomads or urban peoples could move at will without Egyptian consent. So right here, this is proving that we had strict border laws, and we just was not allowing people to rumble back and forth within our borders. We kept that thing because we understood once you became mixed Your mindset became mixed. The way you thought of things changed. Like you'll start saying like, well, they could change. They're not really my enemy. Well, they was my enemy 400 years ago, but things have changed because you've forgotten about what they did to you during Hurricane Katrina. You're talking about a natural disaster, right? A storm coming, right? People being displaced, right? But yet you call them refugees. You talking about people being trapped in buildings. They would not allow these people to leave buildings, right? They put out the Marines, the National Guard. What they call it? They call it when they stop your movement, martial law. You talking about martial law for national? Since when does that happen? You know what I'm saying? They call these people refugees, and you got people being warehoused in buildings, man. These people could have walked 30 miles and got the food and shelter. Could have went up to the next town, right? And sent their aunts and uncles and got some food, but they would say, no, you can't go. But I thought we was free. Let me go up to Hollywood somewhere, right? Cause a natural disaster, right? And then trap them people in. Let's see how they act. A month later, what they call an earthquake happened in Pakistan. They was over there the next day. See, understand, it was our fault because we should have never depended on the people that destroyed us in the first place. We depended on those very people that put us in that situation to change that situation. We should have had programs already set in place, right? We should have already known when this hurricane came that we need food, water, we need to drop some MRAs, we need to do these things for our people, but no, we waited on the enemy. And the enemy did exactly what they supposed to do, wait and let us die. Make us look ugly to the rest of the world. Show us how crazy them niggas is. And that's just what they did. So once again, we waited on Jesus Christ, we waited on Allah, we waited on God, and nothing happened. When are we going to learn our lesson? So the point I'm making here, that in this book of archaeological record, is showing that we did have strict border laws. But my original point was, why am I saying that the Hyksos and the Hebrews are the same people? Because they had the same names. Let's see. It says, for instance, an obelisk-shaped stela from Sebek el-Kadem, dating approximately to the time of Ankhkakek III, depicts several Asians carrying weapons that seem to be duck-bill axe, right? The Asians depicted have Semitic names. And let me go to Malachi York's book, Jesus Found Egypt. I think I have it here. All right. Let's see why I'm saying that these Hyksos, Hebrews are the same people. Because I want to deal with these names that's going to be found on scribes. Found that. See, the thing is, we need to begin to, I want you to see what I'm seeing. Because if you can see what I am seeing, then you will begin to see what it is I have saw. And then you will understand what I am understanding. But first you must see what I'm seeing. I know it sounds like some talk after you smoke some weed or something. The reality is, you gotta see what I'm seeing to know what I know. Let's deal with this. The name Israel, which is really Isis, Ra, and El, a triad deity, right? It's a name, or any of the tribes of Israel are not mentioned in any Egyptian history records. Actually, it is mentioned one time, which is a trip. This document right here, this is a Christian document, right? I'll go over that in a minute, where it's mentioned one time. A Minotaur, his stela is mentioned one time. So let's see. In fact, the Hebrew name Jacob, right, is only found as the name of the Hyksos rulers from the 15th and 16th dynasty, starting with Shehu, or Merib, Yaqub Har, or Jacob, or Yaqub Har, or Jacob Har, or Apapus, right, and Yaqub Ban, and that is Jacob Ban, as Jacob from Genesis 25, 21, and 26. So these people, these Semitic people, had the exact same names as the other Semitic people. That people are trying to make them two different people, but they're using the exact same names. If you come to the, if you don't think York was on it, let's come to the archaeological record. Apart from the great Hyksos dynasty at Obvious, which is their capital, there was at least one, if not several, sub-dynasties, as revealed by the existence of a pattern of distribution of named scarabs. In particular, these include the Hyksos, right, called the Hyksos called Jacob Hadi, or Jacob Ad, or Jacob Ban. Let's see, or Jacob Hadi is also attested twice at Kalba near Nahashira, and once at Sequimanoa near Hafsa. The discovery of the scarabs bearing his name is a grave at Sequimanoa indicates that Jacob Had may predate the Hyksos period, since the contents date to about 1700 BC. So they found scarabs dating back to 1700 BC, right, with these names.
Why you go back and forth between Yaakov and Jacob?
That's an excellent question. Because first of all, there are no J's. So let's come to the Webster International Encyclopedia. Let's find out why I go back and forth. I'm going to come to the J section. Right? It says J, the 10th letter of the English alphabet, one of the last letters added to the alphabet, is a variant of the letter I, from which it became formally distinguishable only with the advent of the printing press. That's amazing. Before that time, J was simply an elongated I, and the two characters were used interchangeably. Thus, in the Roman numeral, J sometimes replaced the I to signify one. It has the sound of a Y in Latin or German or Scandinavian language. It's amazing. So before the 1500 AD, right, there are no J's in the language. And what I want to do is I want to come to, because I like to use some of my past guys, I like to come to the Nile Valley Contribution to Civilization by Anthony Browder, right? And let's see what he says about the J. He says, he used the whole thing. He said the letter V evolved, become the letter U around 500 ACE. Double V was also written as W and later became known as the W around 1000 ACE. The last letter to be added to the contemporary alphabet was the letter J. It evolved from the letter I around 1600 AC. So I just killed your Jesus there, because there ain't no J's. So that's why I was going back and forth with Yaqub, right, and Jacob, because back then they wouldn't have been saying, they wouldn't have been using the J sound. But I just want to just make sure it's on archaeological record, right? They found these scarabs, right, where the names are found in 1700 BC. They found these exact same names. So are we trying to tell me that the Hebrew characters used the Hyksos name or used that particular rulership's name? Same people. They just keep changing the names on you to trick you. What they did was they implanted their history over top of your history so they can verify these things. Because they can verify ancient time already. Ta meaning earth, Ta meaning earth, right? Ma meaning water, and Re meaning sun. Because we were people standing on earth, surrounded by water, underneath the sun. Because you remember I took us back to a time, right, when the whole planet, it was one landmass, and they called it Pandora. And then the whole planet was called, the whole thing was called Tamaré. And we ruled that. And we walked over to what they call in North America because we called it Utla. And it means vacation spot. And the Olmecs did that walking over there, right? Because the Olmecs brought the rubber tree plant with it. And the word Olmec means rubber. So we was walking over in this area in North America, and we built pyramids here. And we gave birth to the Incas and the Maya civilization. But that's a period. But we was over here way before that area. But it proves that we walked over here because we called it Utla or vacation spot. I think they also called the land of frogs. There's a lot of bullfrogs in North America. And my point I was really making was, back to this, I've proven, right, they have the exact same names. All right. Got that point. It's a good book. You need to get this book right here. Excellent book, right here. Excellent book. Like to now show you what they look like. Let's deal with what they look like. Because no matter what you say, right, I'm going to go with what my ancients said. I'm going to go with the people of that time that was there, drew pictures and said they look like. If anybody have any pictures right, of black African Hebrews in ancient times, what they call ancient times, please send that to me. I'm going to go to civilization or barbarism, right? Anthropology. Did I say that right? Yep, anthropology. Check out the Diops. Civilization of barbarism. I'm going to go to chapter 2.
What time you gotta get up?
Okay.
Chapter 2. Let me see what they look like. Watch this, what I'm saying. This is what Sheikh Anthony Diop said. He said, the Hebrews in Egypt, the first two individuals on the right are blacks. They are the Egyptians. Those who follow are Hebrews bringing offerings. The difference between the two communities at this time is clearly visible. In the reproduction, in the textbook, the two blacks, the Egyptians, are generally omitted. But watch this. Y'all see this right here? Y'all see what it look like? See them beards? Now watch when I come. See, the crackers already know. The clay people, they already know. They already know that these are the same people. Get that camera on that. See that? See that spelling, that procession right there? That's nothing but this procession right here. Sheikh Anthony Diops is calling these the Hebrews, right? In the book of archaeological record, right, which is used today, are calling them the Hyksos. The exact same thing. Look at that. Got it. Just got to do the research. So I ain't just talking off the top of my head. I don't care what they say. I don't care what Bible they read out of, their elaborate terms, what they're doing. They do not have the archaeological record to back up their claim of being any Hebrews existing anywhere. The only Hebrews we have a record are the Hyksos and their coalition of people that they put together to attack African people. Got it. Actually, the only evidence they do have, right, which they just found, and I'm pretty sure down the line they'll just keep finding stuff, right? Undoubtedly, the most important mention of Israel outside the Bible, this is the only mention of Israel outside of the Bible, right, is that of Minotaur, right, or Israel Stella, discovered in 1896. And Minotaur's memorial, remember Minotaur succeeded, he came after Ramses, right? Okay, it's the Minotaur's memorial temple in Thebes by Flanders Petrie. The stele is a poetic allude to Pharaoh Minotaur, who ruled Egypt after Ramesses the Great at 1212 or 1202 BC. Of significance to biblical studies is a short section at the end of the poem describing a campaign to Canaan by Minotaur in the first few years of his reign, 1210. One line mentions Israel. Israel is laid waste, its seed is not. Here we have the earliest mention of Israel outside of the Bible and the only mention of Israel in Egypt. One line. Let me get that. See all these books right here? Archaeological record, different books, everything. I'm going to even come to the science of I'm going to break down their holies of holy, what they call what they call that thing? It was in the Raise of the Lost Ark. They were trying to find what were they trying to find? They were trying to find the Ark of the Covenant. I'm going to show you the Ark of the Covenant, nothing but the ancient Egyptian map, right? As defined in the the book is called the But right here, that's what that thing looked like, that little stela, right? They got the one line and it says, Israel is laid waste, its seed is not. I mean, if that's the evidence they want to use, it's fine with me. But that's all they got. That's one line. That's crazy. So we've been following some information. They got one line of proof. 1212 BC, Israel is mentioned. That is amazing. that is so amazing.
Is it real?
Huh?
Is it real?
Is it real? Of course it's not real. It's not dealing with reality.
It's real. Is it real?
It's real. Is it real? Is it real? Is real? Is real light? Yeah, it ain't real light. Trying to find this, show you, get this book.
I have a question.
What's
Why
your
are you
question?
looking for that?
What's your question?
When did the Hyksos come into Africa? And how did they come? Did they come conquering Africa?
Now, the fact of the matter is, let me see, they didn't even come conquering. What happened was, we've always had a strong Asian presence. Let me go to the map, show you. And actually, like I said, we was mining that special pigment. It's called Zolapis sapur. I'm thinking that's the name of the pigment, this special rock that they got out of the Oxen River, right? In actuality, we always had a strong Asian presence from here all the way down there. So in this area, they had a lot of villages, right? A lot of towns. Just matter of fact, we were supplying humanitarian aid to these people. Supplying humanitarian aid, and you know we're gonna always mess with some women, right? We're gonna always break the code, even today. You know, we're gonna mess with some Asian or Caucasus Asians, right? We just do that, and we dropping our seed, and in dropping our seed, then we got this thing. We have a problem now, cause like, do now that I drop the seed with this Caucasus Asian, right? Do I deny my child? No, that's not in our culture. So we want to help our child. So we want to give our child some information. So the amount of information stuff we start to give them, right, is the very information they turned on us to destroy us. I mean, they do stuff like this. We had gunpowder. We use the ancient Egyptian priests used gunpowder for ceremonial reasons. They take the gunpowder and use it to kill people. Just like the chariots. We had chariots, right? We had light chariots, but we used it for ceremonial purposes. They used it for war chariots. So the fact of the matter is, these people was always here on the outskirts, right? As well defined in the structure of the black civilization. They was always out there living around black culture. And as long as we kept those tight border laws, everything started straight. When we start saying, well, you know, that's my son, I can't hate him, let me help him out, right? They started to ease their way. So in actuality, right, they didn't come and conquer like that. If you go to Lower Egypt, right, is where all the mixing was happening. So by the time these foreign rulers had got a strong coalition together, right, the people were already in place. They already had people in leadership positions in what they call in Lower Egypt. They already had people in certain places, in certain pieces of the army. So when that other army came in, right, they just stood back and jumped on that side. I mean, the plan, the way they did it was great. Like right now in America, we already in place. It would not be hard, right, for us to take America, because we're in every single place, and that's how it was in Lower Egypt. It was already there, easing their way. They eased their way in, mixed a little bit, a couple thousand years of miscegenation and getting in and getting around, right? You thinking your brother a little African, but he really not. He's a little mixed, right? So it's like we had that, what they call that mulatto problem. Like Dr. Clark said, right? When they asked him about the mulatto problem, he said, well, take a glass of water, drop some ink in it, right? You can no longer use the water for ink. You can no longer use the ink for writing. So my thing is, at 5,000 years ago, right, these people was hanging around us. We was getting humanitarian aid, but we're allowed to let them in. See, that's not going to happen no more. Now we're going to go ahead and feed them and tell them they got to stay out there. Because, let me go back to the record. Let me show you. We go to the ancient, we go to the Hyksos, right? We showed you how black civilization, oh wait, you going to pause that for a minute? What's the bad? And let's deal with this, right? Let's deal with us mixing and maxing what happened. Let's deal with the Hyksos. Let's go back to African civilization. It said the religion of Islam was rejected. Conversion to both teachings and religion forbidden. In short, the Hyksos saw Islam and Christianity as a white man's vehicle of conquest. It was only the black nations in time, it was the only black nation in time to see this indeed. Meaning the Africans, the ancient Nile Valley Africans didn't see that. These Hyksos did, right? It said the black nation in time to see this indeed. Hyksos prophecy held that when the first white man appeared in your land, the nation would die. That time had not yet arrived. The Amasi's policy of excluding whites and rigidly limiting the number and controlling their activities in the country further illustrated an African experience that is already so clear that it should require no additional light. All African states that began to develop again after the great dispersions, rebuilding and expanding, were prosperous and advancing as black states as long as they borrowed the relentless, aggressive whites from their countries, and their destruction became certain only when they abandoned their policy and let the Asians or Europeans in. On this, the record is entirely clear. The Amasis held a steadfast to their own African religion and African institutions and survived over 500 years into the 20th century until they was finally overrun by France. It's clear. So that's the same thing that happened back then at 1700 BC, right? Some kind of way somebody had relaxed the border laws and allowed these people to ease their way in. So you say, well, that's kind of barbaric not to let them in. They're okay, all right? Look, they're functional people. That's my son, that's my grandson. Come on, give them a job. Let them on in. So that's how they eased their way. They didn't come all out attacking. They eased their way in, so it was rather easy for them to take Lower Egypt. Remember, they only controlled one small portion. That capital was obvious, and they had another name for it. The capital was obvious.